The courtroom was packed so tight, people had to stand in the aisles. Federal agents lined the walls. Reporters leaned forward, pens shaking in their hands. Every seat was filled, and no one was breathing normally. Then the judge looked up and said, "The jury finds the defendants guilty on all counts." Gasps exploded across the room. One by one, powerful men stood in shock. Drug bosses, money launderers, gang leaders, men who ruled the streets for years. They were finished, and it all came down to one man, a man who was supposed to stay silent forever, a prison informant. As he sat at the witness table, guarded on all sides, he didn't look proud. He looked tired. His hands trembled slightly as he lowered his head, because everyone in that room knew the truth. If his name ever got out, he would not live long enough to see freedom. And that's when the prosecutor said, "For the record, the witness will remain anonymous." A whisper ran through the courtroom. The informant had just taken down an entire crime network. But what no one there knew was how close he came to dying before this day ever happened. 2 years earlier, the same man was locked inside Greystone Federal Prison. His name was Jason Miller. Jason was 39 years old, brown hair going gray too fast, quiet eyes. He was serving a 15-year sentence for conspiracy and fraud. He was not a violent man. He was a numbers guy. Paperwork, phone calls, transfers. That was his job. Before prison, Jason worked for people who never showed their faces. He moved money for a large crime network that spread across several states. Drugs came in. Cash went out. Jason made sure the numbers looked clean. Until the day everything collapsed. Jason was arrested during a traffic stop. Wrong place. Wrong time. A laptop in the trunk tied him to millions of dollars in illegal transactions. His bosses disappeared. Jason didn't. That's how he ended up in Greystone. At first, prison felt slow. Loud but slow. Days blended together. Jason kept his head down. He didn't talk much. He didn't ask questions. That was a low part of his life. But prison listens. Other inmates noticed Jason, never worried about commissary money, never asked for favors. Guards noticed he was polite, calm, organized, too organized. One afternoon, a man named Derek Shaw sat beside him in the yard. "You used to work outside," Derek said. Jason didn't answer. Derek smiled. "Relax. Everyone here worked outside once." Jason stood up and walked away. That night his cell was searched. Nothing was taken. That was the warning. A week later, Jason was called to the warden's office. 2 men waited inside. They weren't guards. They wore suits. One of them spoke first. "Mr. Miller, we know who you work for." Jason's stomach dropped. The other man slid a folder across the table. "Photos, names, phone records. We know the network," he said. "We just can't prove it." Jason said nothing. "You can help us," the first man continued. "And if you don't, you'll finish your sentence surrounded by people who already suspect you know too much." Jason understood. In prison, being useful keeps you alive. Being silent gets you killed. He was given a choice. Inform or disappear. Jason agreed to talk. That was the first extreme moment. But becoming an informant inside prison is not like in movies. There are no safe rooms. No guarantees. Only time. Jason was moved to a different unit. New cell. New faces. He was told to listen. To remember names. To write nothing down. The crime network didn't end outside prison. It lived inside. Orders were passed through coded letters. Money moved through family members. Violence was planned during phone calls. Jason heard everything, and every word he remembered made his life more dangerous. One night, an inmate leaned close and whispered, "You ask too many questions." Jason stopped sleeping after that. Days passed, then weeks. Then one morning, Jason saw a man stabbed in the shower. No fight, no shouting, just one quick move. The guards called an accident. The inmates didn't. Jason realized something terrible. He wasn't the first informant. He was just the next one. The men Jason was informing on were powerful. Organized. Patient. If they figured out what he was doing, he wouldn't make it to trial. Then Jason made a mistake. He trusted the wrong person. And that mistake would almost end everything. Jason knew the moment he messed up, it happened in the laundry room. The machines were loud, shaking the floor as clothes spun inside. Steam filled the air, making it hard to see faces clearly. That was usually a good thing. Jason was folding sheets when a man named Caleb Turner stepped close. Caleb was friendly. Too friendly. He joked with guards. He shared food. People liked him. That was why Jason trusted him. "Hey," Caleb said quietly, keeping his eyes on the machines. "You still got family on the outside?" Jason hesitated. Just a second too long. Caleb smiled. "Relax. I'm just asking." Jason nodded. "Yeah." Caleb leaned in. "I might need help moving some money. Small stuff. Nothing crazy." Jason's chest tightened. This was it. The moment informants fear. A test. If he said yes, he was in deeper with the network. If he said no, he looked suspicious. "I can't," Jason said carefully. "I'm trying to stay clean." Caleb didn't reply. He just kept folding sheets. That night, Jason's cell door rattled. Someone kicked it hard. "Snitch!" A voice hissed from the dark. Jason sat on his bunk, frozen, heart racing. The door held. For now. The next morning, the guards found a note on his mattress. "We know." Jason's hands shook so badly he could barely hold the paper. He was pulled out of the cell an hour later and taken to a small room deep inside the prison. No windows. No noise. The two men in suits were there again. "You've been exposed," one said. Jason swallowed. "They know." "They suspect," the other replied. "And in here, that's enough." Jason expected them to pull him out. Protective custody. Somewhere safe. Instead, they said the words that terrified him most. "You're staying where you are." Jason stared at them. "I'll die." The first man nodded. "Possibly. But if you leave now, the network shuts down communication. We lose everything." Jason felt sick. They needed him inside. Alive. Barely. Over the next weeks, the pressure increased. Jason noticed men watching him during chow. Phone calls stopping when he walked by. A sudden silence wherever he sat. Caleb stopped talking to him altogether. That was worse. One night, Jason was cornered in the shower. 3 men blocked the exit. No yelling. No threats. One of them spoke calmly. "You talk to people you shouldn't." Jason shook his head. "I don't know what you mean." A fist hit his stomach. Hard. He dropped to his knees, gasping for air. Next time, the man said, "We won't talk." They walked away like nothing happened. The guards never asked questions. That was a high moment. Extreme. Fast. Terrifying. Jason spent 3 days in medical, bruised but alive. When he returned to his unit, something changed. The network moved faster. Jason overheard names. Routes. Drop locations. Shell companies. Enough to bury dozens of people. He passed everything to the agents through coded meetings with the chaplain, who was part of the operation. The case grew bigger than anyone expected. So did the danger. One afternoon, during yard time, Jason saw Caleb again. Caleb smiled. "You should have said yes," he said quietly. Jason felt cold. That night, the prison went into lockdown. Alarm screamed. Doors slammed shut. Guards ran. Jason heard shouting down the tier. Then a scream. Then silence. Minutes later, a guard rushed past Jason's cell, pale and shaking. Jason pressed his face to the bars. Down the hall, a body was being carried out on a stretcher. The sheet slipped for a second. It was Caleb. Jason's stomach dropped. Caleb wasn't supposed to die. Not yet. That meant only one thing. The network knew Jason was the informant, and now they were cleaning house. Jason slid down his cell wall, breathing fast, realizing the worst truth of all. The case was almost ready. But Jason might not live long enough to testify. After Caleb's body was taken away, Greystone Federal Prison went quiet. Too quiet. No one talked in the halls. No one joked in the yard. Even the guards looked nervous. when a place like that goes silent. It means everyone is thinking the same thing. Someone crossed a line. Jason sat on his bunk, staring at the wall. He knew the rules. When a network kills one of its own, it's not done yet. It's sending a message. And the message was meant for him. The next morning, Jason was moved. Not announced. Not explained. 2 guards came to his cell before sunrise. One stood behind him the entire walk, hand resting on his belt. "Where are you taking me?" Jason asked. The guard didn't answer. They led him through hallways Jason had never seen before. Past locked doors. Past offices. Past a stairwell that went down instead of up. They stopped at a small metal door. Protective custody. Jason felt relief for half a second. Then the door closed behind him. Protective custody wasn't safety. It was isolation. 1 cell. No contact. No noise except your own breathing. The agents visited him that afternoon. "The trial date is set," one of them said. Jason nodded. "Am I making it there?" The agent paused. "That depends." "On what?" Jason asked. "On whether they try again." Jason swallowed. "They will." The agent didn't deny it. Jason spent weeks alone. No yard. No chapel. Food slid through a slot. Lights never fully off. Those were the lowest days. But the work continued. Jason testified in secret first. Video recorded. Voice altered. Names replaced with letters and numbers. He explained everything. How money moved. Who ordered what. Who answered to who. The network was bigger than anyone thought. It reached into shipping companies, construction firms, even local politics. Federal agents made arrests quietly, one by one. No announcements, no headlines yet. They didn't want panic. Inside prison, word still traveled. Jason heard it through guards' whispers. "They're picking them up," one said. "Yeah," another replied. All over. Jason knew the end was close. That made it more dangerous than ever. One night, the power went out. Just for a moment. Just long enough. Jason heard footsteps outside his cell. Slow. Careful. His heart hammered. Then a voice whispered through the door. "You should have stayed quiet." Jason backed against the wall, fists clenched, waiting for the door to open. It didn't. The lights came back on. No guards came. But the message was clear. They still had reach. The next morning, Jason was rushed out of prison before sunrise. Hood over his head. Shackles on his wrists. A different route. Different vehicle. Witness protection. The trial began 2 weeks later. Jason never sat in the open courtroom. He testified from a secure room. Face hidden, voice changed. Still, when he spoke, the room shook. Names were read. Dates confirmed. Money trails explained. One defendant stood up and yelled, "He's lying." The judge slammed the gavel. Evidence followed Jason's words every step of the way. By the end, there was nothing left to argue. That's when the verdict came. Guilty. All counts. The crime network collapsed in a single day. Jason watched the news from a small room somewhere far away. No windows. No decorations. Just a screen. He didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He just closed his eyes. Months later, Jason was released quietly. New name. New state. New job. No one around him knew who he was or what he had done. That was the deal. Sometimes, late at night, he thought about prison. About Caleb. About the men who never saw the trial because they trusted the wrong people. Jason didn't see himself as a hero. He saw himself as someone who chose to stop running. The prison informant who took down an entire crime network didn't walk away proud. He walked away alive. And in his world, that was the rarest victory of all.